All right, so want to go through some basic layering for an image. And I've got this image here. There's a couple of others you can kind of look through on SmugMug. Some that are going to be very easy to kind of do this separation of the background from the foreground. For instance, she's against white. This will easily cut away. Others that are way busier. For instance, maybe I just wanted this girl selected. She's in this giant crowd. Like, how do you kind of do that? So I found an image that's somewhere in the middle. It's a little tricky to kind of separate these two dancers from the background because some of the colors are very similar behind it, but we'll kind of talk about some tactics to use. So what I want to do, I'll have my image and I'll have some text kind of in the middle. Let's go ahead and see how that starts. So I'll start with the easiest way once I've got my image imported is just to select subject. Often this will work and this will do all the work for you. In this case, it has grabbed my dancers and it's grabbed both dancers together. We'll also notice here that it didn't do a great job, right? Like, so there's some parts there where we didn't quite grab on there, and also the face is not really grabbed there. So a few things we'll need to work on to make sure this actually looks good. So what we'll do, and let me just go ahead and zoom in so we can see this a little bit better. There we go. Is once I've got that selected, what I want to do is head over to the quick selection tool. So I've got that's the second one. There's object selection and quick selection. Then I'm going to go back to my subject. I'm going to change my weight, make this a little bit bigger, about 40. That's good. And then what I'll do is add or subtract things that I do or don't want in the selection. So plus button, if you just click normally, is going to add stuff, right? So now I'm adding the ground, etc. Holding the option key, right? I wish that was showing up here, is how to get rid of that, right? So now I've got the option key down, and now I'm getting rid of certain parts of that. So I don't want this sky and all that. And that's what I'll go ahead and do. I want to get rid of, I want this girl on a separate layer, so I'm going to kind of put her off that. Make sure I'm tracing right around the foot, like so. Looks good. And it looks like I need to get the bottom of her foot as well. Make sure she is added there. There we go. I did a pretty good job of tracing around there. And a little bit of that sash. And that's looking much better. Okay, good. I think we've just about got it. And if you really want to fine tune this, yeah, get in, zoom in much closer, change the hardness right so you can really get precise. I'm just kind of doing this quickly for the time being. So once I've got that done, go back to my selection tool. I'll go ahead and I'm just going to do a Control C, Control V. And that is, let me just undo that so you can kind of see what that looked like there. So again, just a Control C, Control V. And now I've got my separate layer over there, which is great and looks pretty good. Again, it's in a little jagged places, but not too bad. And what that's going to allow me to do is then I can go in and I'm just going to type in some font here. Let's put in UMW, make it nice and big. Let's make it kind of a dark blue. I'll just approximate whatever kind of UMW blue we want to do. And I am going to make this thing absolutely enormous, right? So let's just make it really, really big. There we go. Don't love the color of that, but that's okay. We'll deal with it for right now. And then I'll just take this layer, right, where I have my text, and I'm just going to move my layer and move her right on to the top, right? And we'll see in a separate video, you can have a lot more fun with this. You can have like her leg threaded through the text or do things like that. But we have some different options available to us there. Yeah, nice. And another thing you could do here is like, yeah, so maybe I wanted to select my subject here. Let me go ahead and grab my person here. I'll go ahead and use the selection tool again. Make it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to grab my other dancer here. There she is. Grabbing her. And you see where that gets a little tricky, right? Where, let me go ahead and I'll get zoomed in here so you can see it. Is like her skin color and that brick are fairly similar. So there's just not a lot of difference here for it to grab onto in Photoshop. So this is where it gets really tough when there's not built-in contrast and where you may need to really kind of get a smaller brush and really zoom in order to fine-tune this and get just what you want in there. And this can often be a little time consuming, right? Sometimes it's super easy depending on the photo. Sometimes it'll be an absolute pain to get it just right. So again, I'm going to do this a little quick and dirty just for the sake of illustration. It looks like I'm not really tracing great around her arm. Give her legs there. That'll do. And it looks like that is a little bit better. Done there. Get her feet. Okay. Make sure we don't have the other foot there. All right, that'll do. Again, pretty rough, but that'll work. So now I've got her on a separate layer. And, I could put her above, below, wherever. But when I add her back in, maybe I want her above the font. And there are ways, right? Maybe I can have that arm or her leg or something stick over or under the font. You see here, right, where how quick I did that. And now if I look in on my person there, yeah, not looking great there, right? You can see how poorly shaded that is. So that's where you would want to take some more time with this. But that's the basic idea of doing this kind of layering. And you can have some fun with it too. The background and thing I like to do, depending on what you have, but underneath, I actually like to sometimes create a new layer, have that be my text layer. Unlock that so we can do just that. And then maybe I'll have like a white text layer underneath. So I'll just kind of make this white. There it is. And then what I can do is go to my layer here and change the opacity a bit. So we have even more separation. Let me just get it out so you can see what I'm doing. We have even more difference in opacity from that background, either going full opacity or just a little bit of haziness, right? Another thing I like to do is maybe add a little Gaussian blur, which just adds, so this is up into the filter gallery and the nice Gaussian blur. And then I can kind of create even a little bit more kind of background blur on the image just to really kind of make the text stand out in some interesting ways. I also like playing around with the opacity with the font a little bit, make that kind of blend in a little bit. So a lot of things you can do as you're kind of figuring out how to layer the image, but play around with things, cutting objects out, layering them in different ways, and getting some really cool effects in the process.